welcome. My name is Vicky Wauchet. Over the last 20 years, I've had to track every penny and in some cases shoulder massive debt when first I was made redundant and then divorced in order to complete that journey to becoming financially independent and not have to rely on traditional employment. My guest today is Stephanie, and she is another inspiration. Stephanie Taylor has set up her own business, created her own portfolio, and we're going to be talking about some of the challenges that she's overcome. I think you're going to find this truly inspirational, and whether you're into property or not, actually understanding the journey that people go in order to create the life they want is incredibly valuable. Enjoy listening. Hello and welcome. My name is Vicky Wauchet, and this is the wonderful Stephanie Taylor coming back for a second visit. So you may know or may remember that I spoke with Stephanie a couple of weeks ago about her journey into property. But if you haven't picked up on that, the link will be in the show notes so you can. So let me just give you a little introduction. Stephanie is a property entrepreneur, I would go, with a number of companies, from a property management company called HMO Heaven and a rent-to-rent success company, which is really about an education teaching you the strategy of rent to rent. She's also a podcast host, and she's been in many, many newspapers, loads of top tips and everything else. The podcast is up in the top 1.5%, and she's been noted as an inspirational woman in 2021. So on the back of that intro, welcome, Stephanie. Thank you for coming back.
Thanks, Vicky. It's great to be here again.
Thank you very much. So one of the things that I want to do in this one, if we can, is be a bit more pure property, and then we'll see where it goes, because we had an amazing conversation that headed off in a direction that I didn't even think about in the first one. But what I really like to get into here is that one of your companies is HMO Heaven, and it's a property management company. So I assume, no, shall I leave you to describe it rather than assume? No, I'll assume and see if I've got it right. So it's about working with other people who've got HMOs, as well as presumably your own portfolio. And could it be said to be a letting agent for HMO owners?
Yes, it can. Yes.
Oh, I assumed right. That's handy. So much better than going, no, Vicky, you're a complete idiot. That's absolutely not what it's about. So you must have seen some corkers in your time, from the landlords getting it wrong to tenants getting up to mischief, to things that might have been dangerous, things that might have been illegal, things that are a mess. So come on, spill the beans. Obviously you can't name names, but I'd love to hear some stories.
Well, we've had many stories, Vicky, as you would imagine, once you've had hundreds of tenancies. We've got a letting agent now, as you say, and we've got a team there. So we're not so much day to day, but I can remember the horror stories from my days when I was doing everything and doing all the viewings and seeing all the people. But the first one that really left an imprint was the pink ribbon on the door. There was a pink ribbon on the door. Now, we had a tenant, and she was very well, she'd stopped paying her rent, which was not good, but also she was, let's say, entertaining at the property, and she was putting a pink ribbon on the door so that guests, if you will, could find the property.
Oh, the right door. Oh, outside on the front of that.
Yes.
Oh, so a pink ribbon instead of a red light.
Yes. You were on the right page here.
Yes, I sort of guessed where you were going. Yes. Okay.
So she'd put a pink ribbon on the door, and that was quite hilarious, because we were pointed by the other tenants to a website, because nowadays things are online. And so you put yourself online with your profile, etc., and then people contact you and you tell them about the pink ribbon on the door and they come round to visit you.
Okay.
But or there's other online alternatives. Anyway, suffice to say, that's a very memorable one. stands out in my mind. We've
Presumably you asked her to leave.
Yes, we did. And she did eventually leave. And what that taught us was don't wait for the legal process. Now I know that sounds as though it might be illegal, but I'm not suggesting anything illegal. But what I'm saying is in that one, I wanted to make her a proposal to leave earlier at her own free will.
Yes.
Also do the section notices, but also have these other conversations because then they leave earlier. Nikki
Yeah.
didn't want to do that, my business partner. And so we waited a longer process going through the courts and everything. And that was okay, but we just decided after that we're not doing that in the future. And so our next issue
Can we
was,
just pick before you do the next story? Because that thing about following the courts,
yeah,
that's not waiting months. So you've got a tenant that's not paying, you're going to go to court. You need a judge to say, okay, tenant, move out, you're not paying the rent, and they can appeal and they can muck about, and then
yeah,
it doesn't finish there, then you have to get bailiffs. You could
yeah.
be talking close to years, like plural years, not even just months to a year, years waiting for that process. And so
Well,
did you make her a financial offer to move, help her with her
we didn't,
moving costs?
we didn't on that occasion, but we do now.
Right.
As a result of that. But what we did was we went through the process, but we were very on it. But there were times when it went to court and things got deferred and everything. But the whole process took 6 months. And we just thought that that's too long,
Too long.
especially because in an HMO, the other tenants. But we did pursue her afterwards for the shortfall.
Yep.
Um, and so that has been forthcoming. But yeah, an interesting case, and one that's having had that experience, the next time we had an experience was somebody we knew. Now, again, this is something that maybe women fall foul to a bit more, I'm not sure. But this was a young guy who was a bit of a hopeless case, and his aunt and his mum were very keen that we let this person move in. Now, if there were ever red flags, those are them. When you've got somebody petitioning for somebody because they don't want the person to live with them, basically. And he was a lovely young man, but he was just a hopeless case. He used to drink too much and only had a part-time job and was failing with his rent. And so we asked him to move. We just said, this isn't working out. You'll need to move out. And he did agree to voluntarily move. We didn't need to pay him anything to go. We did help him move. I helped him bag up all his stuff in his room and move it out to the car and all of
Oh,
that. But that's what I mean. Now, since the first incidents, we've always just talked to the people. And I think the lessons we've learned over time, that was early on in our property management career, but the lessons we learned over time is when you know, you know. Don't go
yeah.
there if you know.
Trust your instincts. It's a huge part of doing business with people, isn't it? And that's what you're doing. I mean, I think probably what I've missed out saying here is that an HMO is house of multiple occupancy. You probably know this. And so what you're looking at is a number of sharers in a house,
Yeah.
sometimes students, sometimes professionals. So that's the HMO. But you're looking at bringing a group of people together that are going to live under one roof, and your instincts need to be really strong in that place.
Absolutely.
And I think obviously the lesson there is if mum says, can you rehouse my son? The answer needs to be no.
Absolutely.
Don't allow people to run businesses, whatever nature of the business, from home.
Yeah.
So there must be more lessons. Come on.
Yeah, I think the other lessons are the simple lessons that we don't always see. And I had to bring this front of mind when I was going to be stepping away from that role of interviewing all of the potential tenants. I was very worried that nobody else would be able to do it like me, etc. Because although we're talking about the things that went wrong here, mostly things went very smoothly. And I wanted that to continue. And so I had to have a way of being able to explain to Luke, who's our property manager, how to assess people. And there's one way that we assess people that's very straightforward. That's all their paperwork and financials and all that. That's fabulous. But the other part, which is much more important in terms of than getting on with the other housemates and getting on with us, is their ability to have a relationship. And when they, well, first of all, there's a conversation on spare room usually, or there's a conversation online that leads up to the booking of a viewing. Then there's the booking of the viewing, the turning up at the property, and the looking around the property. So during that relationship, you ascertain, and your little antennae are up, can this person be friendly and professional? Because that is what's required at this stage. They're putting their first foot forward. They're putting their best foot forward, and so are we. We're trying to show that we're great property managers, and they're trying to show that they'll be a great potential tenant. And so we need to be looking and watching how they relate to us on the messages. Are they rude, arrogant, don't apologize if they're late, or don't let you know that they're going to be late, or expect to be changing the appointment, 5 minutes before. Oh, so you just notice how people are. And then when they come, can they engage with you? Are they able to hold just normal eye contact? They might be shy. That's okay. But you can tell the difference between shyness, rudeness, and their ability to be able to get on with other people. I think that's important. And so those are the things that we have instilled into Luke so that he's able to assess people from A, on paper, affordability, etc., and B, personality and suitability, obviously, for that particular house and who else is living there.
Yeah, fascinating. You've mentioned the paperwork. So what about some paperwork horror stories? I love this. I could spend my entire day. I've spoken to some previous guests where we're talking about we really need to set up a property horror story podcast that we're all on, and that we'll all just have conversations sharing that. Oh my goodness, I need to tell you about this one. And then we could just spend our lives doing it, because this is quite fun. Because the thing is that, and I think it picks up from what we spoke about before, this idea of a challenge. Each one of these was a challenge, and you've learned from them. So you learned from the pink ribbon, you learned from the mother's son, you've adapted your strategies, your processes, and you couldn't make your strategies and processes better if you didn't have the lessons. Do you think?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, you can learn them from other people, of course. You can learn from other people's mistakes, and so you don't have to make mistakes
I
yourself.
wonder if some of those lessons hit home quite as hard as when it's
They do.
your own mistake as well, though.
They do. They hit home a lot harder when it's your own mistakes. But yeah, and the other thing you learn is that these things don't matter. At the time, it can feel like, well, especially when you're new, this is such a big problem.
Yes.
We've got this pink ribbon lady, to be kind, living at the property and, causing disturbances to the other tenants. This is the end of the world. The end of the world is nigh. But now when anything happens, you just know in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you won't remember it because I still remember the pink ribbon, but it's not a big deal, and you know that, and you can deal with it it's not an emotional basis.
Yeah, you can laugh about it now.
Yeah, exactly. Here's our process. Here's how we deal with things. So even in the moment as you're going through it, now it's not a big deal.
Yeah. I think when I think about my horror stories and I wind back, I've given the tenants names. So there's Dirty Jennifer, Naughty Nicola, and sorry for this one, Dog Poo House. So Dog Poo House is a story. So we have to let tenants have pets. That's the law now. Absolutely fine. So they were perfectly right. The tenant was a single mum with her kids. I like single mums with their kids. Trouble is, this single mum got a new boyfriend. The boyfriend was nice. It was all right. He took her away for the weekend, her and the boy, but they left the dog in the house. And I get a call, or the letting agent gets a call from the next door neighbours. And the next door neighbour says the dog is barking, and I've not seen anybody come and go, and I'm worried about the dog. Okay. So we have reason to enter, and we go round and we find this poor dog is in the house and he's got no food, and he's ripped open the rubbish bins. Unfortunately, in the rubbish bins, there were nappies and things. He's just eaten whatever he can find because he's really hungry. So they got round the RSPCA, the dog got picked up, the dog got fed and looked after, etc., etc. And then the tenant comes back after their holiday. Bearing in mind, these are benefit tenants and they're on holiday. That's fine. So they've gone on holiday and they've come back, and then they cross that the dog's gone. We've left them a note in the house and explained what's happened. The boyfriend gets in touch with the letting agent and he's furious. And we go, but actually, this is not acceptable anymore. You need to leave. We need to end this relationship. So they decided that they were going to go. They just went that day, and we went, okay, hold on. Are you going to take your stuff with you? And they went, oh, yes, we need the mattress. They came back for the mattress that the dog had pooed on. Awesome. My goodness, my poor maintenance guys, they were physically sick at having to clear this property out. It was horrendous, but it made me learn that from now on, or from that point on, I got working guarantors for all of my tenants. I never had another tenant that didn't have a working guarantor, so that whether they're going to leave their dog behind or whether they're going to make a mess of the property, we're covered, because the level of mess that they'd end up leaving in that house, their deposit certainly didn't cover it. So again, another one of those horror stories that you learn from. And I'm sure you probably don't get dog poo rooms in HMOs, but you've probably got similar disaster stories.
Yeah, there's been all sorts. People can go, people can have mental health issues, for
Yeah.
example. And so there was somebody who'd got bottled urine in there.
Oh, okay.
A lovely guy at the beginning, but something had gone amiss at some stage during the time that he was living with us, and he just went downhill, and that was one of the things that he was doing, bottling urine and
Oh, and keeping it.
stockpiling it in his bedroom.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But
Maybe it was in case the apocalypse came and we ran out of water, because, Bear Grylls likes to drink his, doesn't he?
yeah, it's a thing apparently. But yeah, and it's just dealing with all of those things with
Yes.
compassion,
Mm,
but also a process.
yes. I don't think people understand when they use the word landlord, quite the roles that we take on. Yes, we're a landlord, and if you like, that's the legal bit. We're a business owner, so we've got to be aware of the systems, the processes, and the finances of things. And of course, then all the other things like accountant and HR department. But actually, you mentioned that bit about social worker. We are very much a social worker as well. And I had another fact. This was Dirty Jennifer. And I think there were mental health issues there. She was fine when she arrived. Mum, 2 kids, boyfriend. They'd lived there probably 3 years. And then unfortunately, boyfriend got another lady pregnant and left Dirty Jennifer. And my letting agent, balmy she was, lovely lady, decided that she was going to help this woman get her life back on track. She would go round once a week with cleaning products and teach Dirty Jennifer how to clean. It got so bad, and I think now that you sort of say, I don't think we picked it up quite at the time, but we're more aware of mental health issues now. And again, this is years ago, that actually there were mental health issues there, but we were worried about the kids. So then we got social services involved, and we got the school involved, and we're looking after the children. When Jennifer finally left, and we had to ask her to leave because the kitchen just now was becoming a health hazard, and then the neighbours in the flats were complaining about the smell and the flies that were coming out of Jennifer's house. We walked in, and there was this sort of crunchy sound that we walked on. And I thought, okay, she's a flat, she's got kids, she's probably let the kids play with sand. It was biscuit crumbs. All over the floor is biscuit crumbs. When we pulled the sofa out, the sofa left an impression, a sort of a reverse impression of a sofa in crisp packets. So behind the crisp packets, her thing was to eat multi-packs of crisps, fold each crisp up into a triangle, put all of those crisps back in the original multi-pack pack, and fold that up into a small parcel, and then stick it down the sofa. And she'd eaten that many packets of crisps that this sofa all around the back, all down the sides, and in the sofa as well, that when we pulled the sofa forward, they'd been pressed in so hard that the impression stayed. My biggest regret ever, and I've taken lots of incredible photos, I didn't photo that. I didn't photo it. We got so sick refurbing that one, and that's the last property I ever persuaded Bob to come and help me clear. I went, oh, we've only got to clear the flat. It'll be fine. We'll clear it. Once we get all the rubbish out, it'll be absolutely fine. And then we'll get the builders in, but we'll save money by clearing it. We'll just get a van and we'll do it. No, 4 days, including a couple of days off for vomiting in the middle. Not doing that again. Not doing that again. Bless her. Yes.
That's another lesson, isn't it? You realize, do not DIY.
No. And the thing was, I'd had one before that where we'd done a property, and I went, that's it, that's the last one we do. And it had been about 3 or 4 years. And I think the further you get away from a challenge that you've had, and as you said it, these memories soften. Your pink ribbon, it's not as emotional now. So it's power, if you like. You've implemented the learning, but the power that was with it weakens, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But of course, if it weakens too far, then you can forget the lesson. And the lesson was,
and then you end up having 2 babies or 3.
I've done it before. I don't enjoy it. Why on earth did I suggest doing it? And then we'd hired the van and we were committed, and I was so determined that we could get through this in between rushing to the bathroom and everything else. Yeah, no. And we haven't done one of our own for easily 10 years now. No. That's why we pay tradespeople. Tradespeople are brilliant. That's what the team is for, isn't it? You're a good broker. You mentioned this previously in the story that you told in the last podcast. A good broker that can help you get over the financial challenges and maybe lack of experience that we have. Someone that you might know, a mentor or a coach, someone that teaches you a lesson to improve your system so you don't make that inverted commas mistake again. It's fascinating. Who do you think has been most pivotal, or one of the most, if there's more than one, in helping you, and I'm going to use the word generally, professionalize what you do, improve what you do? Who do you think's been most pivotal, or one of the most, or who are the few most pivotal for you?
Well, years ago, I was on a business accelerator with National NatWest. It was called the Entrepreneurial Spark. That's what it was called. And I was new to business, and it was when I was starting the property business in 2016. I didn't really know anything. And one of the things that really blew my mind almost is there's a process to business. They were explaining about the startup process and how you go through all of these different levels. And they were talking about the ones where you get the investment and so on. But what stuck with me is there's a process. You do this, you do that, and you do that, and then
this happens.
And that just sounds so basic now. But that was one of the things that told me there's a process to everything. And if you follow the process, you're much more likely to achieve success. And it sounds so basic, but it also means that anytime there's a problem, I know that there's a process that can solve this problem. And I just need to find out what that process is. So that was one of the most important things. And that led to what helped us to be successful in business, is that when we got those first 2 properties in Newport, I onboarded 9 tenants. And I said, I never want to do any of that again. And we created the process of how you onboard a tenant, even from how you put up the ads and what you put in the messages to people, what questions you ask people as they're looking around, what we're looking for, etc. And so we had this whole flowchart thing. But because we didn't have a huge income from the business at that stage, we could get a virtual assistant straight away to do all of the online aspects of that, and have a system where we can see they're only working Monday to Friday. If we need to follow up at the weekend, we can see exactly what they've been doing. And so that was a powerful game changer, because it just meant that we could step away from certain aspects at that stage. And then when we had more properties and more income, we could employ somebody, and we already had systems in
there
place.
for them. Yes. That's really interesting, isn't it? That point where if you take on this business mentality is looking at what your systems are, so that other people can come in the business. And the number of times I've done this, I get quite frustrated with, I suppose, potential employees. So I think you mentioned your on board now is Luke. You know, you're so lucky when you find someone who fits in the business, who understands what you're trying to achieve, who works. And I think the thing is that we're not employees, and although we are technically employers, we're not employers, we're entrepreneurs. And to work with an entrepreneur requires you to be a different type of employee when you're in that smaller business. It's not about watching the clock. It's not about it's 5:30. I'm not going to answer messages now. It's about being more adaptable. I always check my phone. I only have one phone. I can't be doing with all of this. I have one phone, and I always check my phone at about 9:30, 10 o'clock. Sometimes a little bit later if I'm doing something, as a last thing before I go to bed, and make sure that there was nothing there that I can just do a quick ping off and give someone a solution. Even if they then don't end up reading it till the next day, I know I've dealt with stuff before I go to bed. And it doesn't matter to me because it's my business. And I'm so lucky that the people in my team, if you message on WhatsApp, it's because you'd quite like a response. If you send an email, it can wait till tomorrow. When we've got that level of understanding with one another, and finding the right people to be on your team is as important, or maybe even more important, than finding the right tenants to fit in the house. It's you said it was about being able to have relationships, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, when I was doing it, definitely I would be on there any time of day or night. But we were very aware that when we were taking Luke on, that our expectation was that he would be there 9 to 5:30.
Yeah.
He wouldn't look at his phone after that or do things in the evenings. Um, and that has worked out pretty well. And I think that I was a bit worried about it at first, but I think with a normal letting agent, unless it's an emergency, people's expectations are that it's 9 to 5 or 9 to 5:30 or whatever their opening hours are.
Yeah.
It's kind of worked out quite well, and it's just given us all a bit more, you know, restriction of,
Yes. Yes.
get on fit sometimes and stay off it. And we can work more if we want to, but we try not to do tenant facing work out of hours, because it reinforces the fact that you will be.
Yeah. You'll be online out of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, unless it's an emergency, like the roof's collapsed or something, then it's not so bad. I think again, I could spend hours having these conversations, and I think we could come up with probably another 100 between us of things that have gone wrong in property. But I think the key thing out of this for me is it's an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to improve. It's a lesson. And also, as you said, with the pink ribbon, as time passes, then the stress that you experience in the moment fades.
Yeah.
And if you then can then see the next challenge as something like, oh, I'm feeling really stressed about this, as you said, there is a process to get me through this. I now know that. Again, I think a lot of the stuff that you've said across the two podcasts has been that you reflect, if I can use that word, that you look back and you go, oh, I had that challenge and I got over that challenge. This challenge is more than that challenge, but if I could do that challenge, I can do this challenge. And this tenant's got a pink ribbon. If I can get over this, then I can move on the next one, So it seems to me that process of reflection, which is something that I was taught quite early on in my career, is so valuable. Don't be, yes, you're going to be focused forward, but don't be focused so far forward that you can't see where you've come from. You can't recognize the wins that you've had. If you're always blinkered and looking forward, you miss the joy of the journey.
Yeah, you miss the joy of the journey. And like you said earlier, Vicky, I love being on this journey. I love the problems that I have now, different set of problems, different life. But I was at an event recently talking about the different properties we've bought, and the huge amount that they've gone up in value. And talking about the people that we've worked with, helping them to start doing their own property management businesses and hearing their stories from the stage. And I just think there's so much value created in property. You get the value from helping other people to succeed.
Mm.
You get the monetary value, which you can use in any way you want, whether it's something to do with lifestyle, buying back your time, or whether it's passing on to your children, or whether it's what we want to do, setting up an accommodation and education trust to help people who struggle to find nice homes, to be able to give them that. So it just gives you so much. I know I don't use the word abundance, is maybe an overused word, but it gives you so much. I think abundance is a good word for it when you get started in property.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, there is the financial aspect because this is a business. It's not a charity. So I remember once I got to be recognized by the Telegraph, and I know you've been in the Telegraph as well, and that's what the banner says at the back, is recognized as one of the top 25 most influential in property, which still makes me giggle. And I went on there, and I know you should never do it, and I went on, and my picture's up, and there's some comments underneath, and one of the comments was, oh, I really liked this woman's story until I realized she was making a profit from renting property to other people. And I just thought to myself, did you honestly expect me to take on the debt? I'm going to buy the house. I'm going to put in my worked cash, my savings, my personal income into the property with a mortgage. And then it's not good enough that I've put my money in. I'm also going to pay the rent for you so that you can live there either for free, I don't know what they wanted, or just covering my basic costs, but I would get nothing for the risk that I was taking, the risk that you would damage my house, the risk that you might not pay the rent. And it's just extraordinary, isn't it? But when you get people who see the other side of it, you've got a business that can help other people. In my early days, every single one of my tenants was a single mom on benefits. And I remember it was somewhere around 2017 before I got my first working tenant. And I think that was, where were we then? That'd been maybe 13 years, right? And I remember being a bit disappointed that I now couldn't say that for the last 13 years I've housed single moms on benefits. I've helped them have a decent roof over their head so they can provide for their children. Oh, rats, now this one's working. You've spoilt it.
Yeah, yeah. No, but
It's
you can do so much, and
yeah.
you have been doing so much. But yeah, I find it's strange. But I think people who haven't been in this world, you come into this world and you realize you went to that self-development event. For me, it was when I started going to those property events. You see a different world. And I
Yeah.
think many people have never seen that world. And so they're just about making a living, through their job, and they don't think anybody should be allowed to make a profit
No.
apart from, I'm
Well,
not.
apart from their own employer,
Yes.
so it's okay for your employer. So I think, not to sort of finish on a knocking people who don't understand us, I think the thing is that this is so much more than just property. It's so much more than being a landlord. We are having a positive effect on people's lives. And I think, even if they've got a pink ribbon or a mum that wants them to move out, or any of the other stories that we share, or a dog that they haven't fed properly, it makes a difference to people's lives, both the tenants and the investors and the clients that we work with. And I think that's what's inspirational. And I've loved speaking to you, Stephanie. I really have. And for everybody who's listening, I hope that not only have you learned something about, I suppose, the business side of investing in property, to understand that it's a process, but if you put this together with the podcast that I did with Stephanie a few weeks ago, to understand how much mental resilience you need, but that is actually something that you can grow and you can develop as you move forward, that the challenges are there to help you learn and to grow. And the alternative is that, as Stephanie told in the last story, that you take that 6-month contract and you stay in a job that you don't enjoy. And I think if you're listening to this podcast and you're on this journey of personal growth, you're looking for something more. And what I think I can say on Stephanie's behalf and mine, we want to help you on that journey. We want to help you grow and help you learn more. So I hope that we've been able to put some whoosh into your life. Stephanie, superstar. I'm sure we're going to have you back again. Let's think of something else we can talk about, maybe more horror stories or another aspect of investing in property. Maybe let's have a chat about that trust, that education and accommodation trust that you want to do, because I'm sure there's still loads more that the listeners can glean from you. Thank you again.
Well, thank you, Vicky. It's been lovely to come back. And I just want to say, because we've been talking about all the things that go wrong, it's incredible fun too.
Yes.
And you get to meet incredible people
Yes.
like you, Vicky, and the many other investors and others that we work with. So yeah, thanks
Yes,
for
it's
having
not all horror stories, guys. we were just looking at the funny side of horror stories. So all of Stephanie's details will be in the show notes on the usual channels that you listen to this. And of course, you'll be able to watch us on YouTube as well. So final thank you, Stephanie, and let's make more plans to speak again.
Thanks, Vicky.